What's going on, guys? Justin here with some of my favorite and not so obvious starts and sits for NFL Fantasy Football Week 7. I want to first say thank you, maybe prematurely, for 200 subscribers. And I also want to mention that over 97% of you guys that watch are not subscribed, so please hit that subscribe button really quick. Let's jump right in with some of the quarterbacks that I'm looking to start this week. Justin Fields put up a stinker last week in the London game against a top-tier defense. But this week, he gets a bottom 7 pass defense in the Carolina Panthers. And they are actually a good run-stopping defense per DVOA, 4th in the NFL, but a quarterback scrambling doesn't really fit into that category, so I'm cool with starting Justin Fields. Caleb Williams has produced so far in the fantasy football season, and he gets a bottom 5 team in terms of passing defense DVOA in the New Orleans Saints in Week 7, so go ahead and fire him up as well. If you are thinking of sitting Baker Mayfield because of his injured wide receivers, I would advise against it. He's proven time and time again he can get the job done with just about anybody out there catching passes, and the Lions are pretty banged up themselves. Add in the fact that Brian Branch is suspended, and I think there should be a lot of points in this game. With that being said, you could also go ahead and start Jared Goff. Drake May has basically been on this list every single week, and he takes on a bottom 12 passing defense in the Titans. They don't give up a ton of points to quarterbacks, but that won't dissuade me from getting May into my lineups. And last week, I told you guys a deeper option was Bryce Young, and he finished as the QB 12 on the week against the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys have a bottom 2 passing defense in the league, but Bryce Young gets the Jets this week, who are 3rd worst in the league by DVOA. Moving over to the quarterbacks that I'd be looking to sit, I'm starting off with Mac Jones. He's had some great games so far this season, but the Falcons have the best passing defense DVOA in the entire NFL, and it's by quite a bit too. Even if Purdy goes, I'm still going to avoid the 49ers quarterbacks this week. Trevor Lawrence has been on my sit list quite a bit this season because I don't really think he's all that good at football. Though the offense is starting to come together, but he does get the best pass coverage team per PFF in the LA Rams this week. So I would be looking for a better option than T-Law. Kyler Murray missed last week with a foot injury, and if he plays this week, then I would be avoiding him again. He takes on a good Packers team who are the 2nd best in the NFL in terms of pass defense DVOA. Plus, his foot injury may limit his rushing ability, which has provided him with a nice floor so far this season. Jackson Dart has the opportunity to solidify himself as matchup proof if he performs well against the Broncos this weekend. Though, they have one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, so I would look for a better option this week. I also want to temper my expectations on Daniel Jones. He draws a Chargers defense that is top 10 in pass defense DVOA and PFF coverage grade, though there are definitely worse options. Heading over to the running backs that I want to get in my lineups, I'm starting with Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, aka Bill. Now, he had a pretty good matchup heading into last week against the Bears, but he didn't really produce. This week, he gets the worst rushing defense in the entire NFL in the Dallas Cowboys. Fire him up. Now, if you want to make an argument that the Cowboys aren't the worst rushing defense in the NFL, then the Dolphins definitely are. And Quinshawn Judkins gets them this week. If the Browns lean on the ground game, which they should because the weather's not supposed to be great, this could be a monster game for the rookie. J.K. Dobbins gets a bottom 5 rushing defense in the New York Giants this week. I think this should be a good bounce-back opportunity after the horrid game in London last week. And the Chiefs have a bottom 10 rushing defense in terms of EPA allowed per play, so Ashton Jeanty should be in lineups this week. The Chiefs did just shut down the Lions last week, but Jeanty is the best player on the Raiders by far, so the offense should run through him. As for the running backs I want to sit, I'm starting with the Texans running back room. They take on a very good run-stopping Seahawks defense. In fact, they have the 2nd best rushing defense per DVOA in the entire league. David Montgomery draws the Buccaneers defense this week, who have a top 10 rushing defense in terms of EPA allowed and DVOA. This could be a higher scoring game, but I would expect Gibbs to be the main beneficiary of that. Like Jackson Dart, Cam Skattebo gets one of the best defenses in the league in the Denver Broncos, so I think you could find better options than him this week. Tony Pollard saw his role shrink last week as Tajay Spears played his 2nd game of the season, and they take on a top 10 rushing defense in the New England Patriots this week. In a game script that doesn't favor the Titans, I think Spears may outscore Pollard yet again in Week 7. And the last running back I want to mention is Breece Hall. I don't know if you could outright sit Breece Hall, but the Panthers have a sneaky good run-stopping defense. In fact, it's 3rd in the NFL in terms of DVOA. Garrett Wilson is also out, so he should see even more work, and there are definitely worse options out there. But I just wanted to let you guys know about this matchup. I have a few wide receivers that I want to get in my lineup this week, and we're starting it off with the Commanders wide receivers. As mentioned before, the Cowboys have a horrid defense, so I would be starting Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin if they are healthy in Week 7. Tet McMillan, like Bryce Young, has been on this list quite a bit this year with all the good matchups they've had. Tet finally got into the end zone last week and gets to play a bottom 3 pass defense in the Jets this week, so fire him up. Rome Odunze is pretty much a must-start player at this point in the season, but like Caleb Williams, he takes on the Saints who have a bottom 5 passing defense. This is also a great time to go trade for Rome. He just came off a poor performance on Monday Night Football against the Commanders, but he gets the Saints, Ravens, Bengals, and Giants in the next 4, and he's already had his bye. Stephon Diggs had a quiet game in Week 6, and a good matchup too, but I look for him to bounce back this week against the Titans who have a bottom 12 passing defense. And I don't think I need to mention Drake London, but he draws such a good matchup against an injured, poor pass defense 49ers team, so I have to mention to get him in your lineups. As for the wide receivers I'm sitting, I want to first talk about the Eagles wide receivers. With the inconsistency the Eagles passing offense has, I'm going to sit the Eagles wide receivers against one of the best passing defenses in the league in the Vikings. I also want to sit Cooper Kupp against a very good Texans defense. They are the third best in passing defense and DVOA in the entire league. Now, the last 2 weeks, the Packers have given up big games to George Pickens and Jamar Chase, but they still have the second highest passing defense by DVOA and PFF coverage grade in the NFL. Because of this, I'm going to sit Marvin Harrison this week. And the last receiver is a bit of a tricky one. Jerry Jeudy gets an amazing matchup against the Dolphins, who have had the worst passing defense DVOA in the entire NFL. But this weather could play a huge role in this game. High winds and precipitations is not ideal for a pass catcher. I actually had Jerry Jeudy on my starts list this week because of the matchup, but the weather is pushing me away. Heading over to the tight ends I want to start this week. If David Njoku were to miss, then I think Harold Fannin is a must start. We've seen that Dylan Gabriel loves to target the tight ends, and like I just mentioned, the weather might remove any downfield passing attack, but this should only benefit the tight ends. Even if Njoku plays, I still might be starting Fannin. Mason Taylor might be the number 1 pass catcher this week for the Jets, as Garrett Wilson is set to miss at least this week, but probably more. As mentioned before, they get the Panthers, who are a bottom 7 pass defense by DVOA, PFF coverage grade, and EPA allowed. Now, the Patriots have a solid run defense, but have the 4th worst passing defense by DVOA. It feels gross to start any Titans players at this point in the season, but Chig Okonkwo is coming off a 6-catch performance last week. If you really need a tight end, I think he's a deep sleeper, and you could do a lot worse than him. I've already talked a few times about how poor the Cowboys' defense is, so that means you could go ahead and fire up Zach Ertz. He's coming off a top 5 tight end fantasy performance last week too. There are a couple tight ends that I'm looking to sit this week, and I've mentioned that the Texans had a tough defense while talking about Cooper Kupp, so this means I also don't want to start any of the Seahawks tight ends. They use multiple guys too, so that's already one red flag, but the matchup makes it even worse. The other tight end I want to avoid this week is Theo Johnson. He had a few solid games so far this season, but with the rookie quarterback taking on the Broncos defense, I'd look for a better option. And that's all for my starts and sits for Week 7. Please like the video if you did like it, and drop any questions you have in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.